Hi, my name is Jamie and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about some books that I read recently that were absolutely horrendous, and I don't know how well this is going to go. I tried filming this video and I started rambling for about 30 minutes because I was just so upset with this book. I started this series on my TikTok and then I decided to delete my TikTok because I don't know, I'm going through a crisis, I don't know. I called the series Dollar Tree Book Reviews. It was where I would buy books from my local Dollar Tree and then tell you if they were worth $1. If you don't know, Dollar Tree actually, well, a lot of discount dollar store or whatever, they'll have book sections. They get books from like Target, Walmart, other places like that that had books. Those books didn't sell, or they were returned, or it was overstocked, something like that, and they're sold to Dollar Tree to be sold for $1, obviously, or $1.25, you know, wherever you are now. Because Dollar Tree isn't buying them from like a publishing house or curating their own inventory, I find it's like really interesting. It's kind of like gamble what kind of books you're gonna find there, and I have found a few diamonds in the rough, if I do say so myself. One of the more recent 5-star books that I found at Dollar Tree would be The Great Unknowable End by Catherine Ormsby. But there are also a lot of bad books. I mean, these are the books that didn't sell at other places. And and when I say bad, I mean really bad. And because for a while I wanted to only buy my books from Dollar Tree, I have a lot of these Dollar Tree books that are kind of bad. My like overall rating on, not Goodreads, I don't use Goodreads, what's it called? Storygraph, is pretty low because I read a lot of these. I read 2 of them recently and I want to talk a little bit about them, give them a little bit of a review. This is going to be more in depth than my TikTok videos. My TikTok videos would just be like, here was 3 stars. And it was written okay. I wanted to go more in depth on why I thought these books didn't work, why they didn't work for me, things like that. So this is going to contain spoilers. I do want to kind of go in depth, so I'm going to talk about the entire book. And without further ado, let's get into it. It's called A Wonderful Stroke of Luck by Beattie. I didn't do a lot of research into the authors other than what was just on the books themselves or what I read in reviews when I looked up the books after I'd finished them. So far, what I can tell about Beattie is she's a prolific author. She's written, I think, like 20 books. I'm not going to count that. That's like 20 books. I think this was like her 21st, 22nd book to be published, and it was published in 2019. I found a review that said that she was 70 years old or in her 70s. I'm not sure if that's true. I didn't do a lot of research into her, like I said. There were some reviews that said this was not representative of her other works, so I'm going to judge this book, not the author. So based on the synopsis of this book, I assumed that this was going to be a literary coming-of-age novel based around academics, almost dark academia. So that was like an expectation I had, and just because the book didn't meet my expectations doesn't mean that it's a bad book, because, you know, maybe I misunderstood the synopsis or whatever, or the synopsis might have been just a tad bit misleading. I'm not sure. There are a ton of books where I thought it was going one way and it totally went a different way, and I was like, wow, it's still a good book. This was not the case. This is the case of the book is just wild. This book was just incomprehensible to me. Introduced to Ben, the main character, who is going to a boarding school called Bailey Academy, in which they have an honor society that is taught by the Professor Laverde, who is like kind of a darling to the students. He's just really cool, makes them really think, use their brain. And because it was a boarding school and because it had an honor society and also a like really good math department, they talked about like the math majors. They called them majors. I don't know why. But they talked about like the math club and how cool it was and how the teachers were like really masters of their craft. I don't know. I assumed that this was a very privileged kid kind of book, which a lot of dark academia and regular academia, literary novel, whatever you want to call it, they are set around privileged societies and then break down those societies and talk about how corrupt or disingenuous or bad bad those societies are. And I thought that's what this book was going to do. It did not. The first chapter was a huge exposition dump about nothing that mattered. So it told us about the students in the honor society that all loved Laverde, looked up to him, wanted to impress him. Okay, love that. And it was like a popcorn discussion about a philosophical text or something. I can't really remember. And it would literally be like, philosophical comment said Lulu, and then it would describe Lulu, and then it would popcorn to the next person, and it'd be like a rebuttal said Benson, and then it would be a little bit about Benson, and then which I mean was kind of weird to me because it just kind of popcorned around and jumped from person to person, and I got like very little description about them, and then it moved to the next person, and I was like, there are too many people talking right now for me to keep track of what's going on. But whatever. Like, it's a first chapter. It's a little bit of an exposition dump. Other books have started in worse ways. I really appreciated that it was kind of in media res because it just started out in the middle of a lecture and popcorned, and then we got a little bit of a description for each person, and I was like, okay, there's world building. Although there wasn't a lot of like description about the place. There wasn't a lot of ambiance. There wasn't a lot of setting of tone or description of the setting. Nothing like that. It was just kind of a dialogue discussion, which is like whatever, fine. I assumed that this was like junior year. A lot of high school books are set in junior year. It's never actually told what year it is. That's foreshadowing. Let me repeat that. It's never said what year it is. Not just school year for the characters. It's never said at the beginning of the book what year this takes place. Because this was written in 2019, I assumed it was taking place in 2019. We learn the main character is Ben. He comes from a rich family, has a bad relationship with his father, not a great relationship with his stepmother. His mother died when he was young, and then his sister also estranged. In the synopsis, it does talk about Ben's stepmother and sister and how that relationship needs to be worked on, and that's what he works on throughout his life. And I'm like, okay, so I'm introduced to his stepmother and his sister. We're also introduced to Lulu, who is the coolest girl in school, and she is sexually liberated, and every guy wants to be with her, but she doesn't like her classmates. She likes older married men. And it is never commented about why this is bad, just that Lulu is bad for having an affair with an older married man. I've read books where a teenaged girl is in a relationship or having an affair with an older married man, and it is used as a commentary for something. And I think the books that I've been able to read that have that really do use it as a commentary of why that kind of relationship is wrong and bad. This book, no, it doesn't. It's commented on, it's laughed at a little bit, it's used to demean Lulu, the character, because she's adventurous and rebellious and likes to stir up trouble, and not she's a teenage girl that's getting taken advantage of. There are 2 lectures with the Professor Laverde. The first one in the first chapter, talking about philosophy. The second one is him discussing literally this painting that's used as I don't know much about art history or that painting or how art history influences philosophy, but whatever. It's brought up, this painting is brought up a couple times throughout the book, but it didn't seem thematically relevant. I even saw a review that was kind of pointing out the thematic relevance, and it just didn't, I didn't understand it. But metaphors are often lost on me. Like, unless it's overt, I don't understand them. Then Bennett has a conversation with Laverde, and then 9/11 happens. Like I said before, there was no mention of what year this took place in beforehand. The closest thing to a time setting up the time period was them talking about a Michael Jackson concert. So in my head, I went, oh, so this isn't a modern contemporary novel. Because again, it was written in 2019. This isn't a modern contemporary novel. This has to be set before 2009, because I believe that's when Michael Jackson died. And then 9/11 happens. That's all there is, a Michael Jackson comment. If I didn't know that Michael Jackson, I barely know anything about Michael Jackson. If I didn't know anything about Michael Jackson, I wouldn't have known when this book took place. I was born in 2000, so I obviously was too young to remember 9/11 happening. This obviously is an older woman writing about an experience she went through. I understand that she is pulling from her own experiences, but the way it was written just seemed just a little bit insensitive to me. But again, I don't want to pass too much judgment. She would write about the watching it happen on the TV, and then that was interspersed with descriptions about the teen drama that was happening. So it'd be stuff that's happening on the TV, how traumatic and shocking it was, and then it'd be these two characters, Ben noticed these two characters holding hands, and are they dating? Have they always been that close? Or something like that. That's the way I interpreted it. Maybe that's not what she meant. And I don't want to pass too much judgment. I obviously did not experience 9/11, and so I could not tell you what it was like. Maybe that was her own experience, being so shocked watching it happen through the news, and then not being able to focus on that and having to focus on workplace drama or other things that were going on in her life. It was just kind of weird that there was no time period set up or established beforehand, and then the start of the, I don't know, chapter 3 or 4 is 9/11 happens. 9/11 happens, and then they graduate, and then it's the summer, and Ben, our main character, doesn't know where he wants to go to school, and is just experiencing his summer. He's working, and he has a girlfriend, and they have sex, and I'll talk about the sex later. Literally, he's I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna go to Cornell. I almost said Cornwall. I'm gonna go to Cornell. And then he's 4 years have passed, and I graduated college, and I now live with my girlfriend. Woo! 4 years? Really? Nothing happened at college that was of note? Nothing? You're not going to describe his college years? It just didn't seem like far enough into the book for there to be a time skip. If you've ever read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which she's one of my favorite authors, The Goldfinch has part 1 and part 2, and between those two parts is an 8-year time skip, but it's in the middle. So you get a huge portion of the main character of The Goldfinch, his childhood and his early years, and all the things that lead him to the time skip. And after that 8 years, you're oh wow, a lot has happened, and a lot has happened, but you also have that explained to you what has happened. This is just 1 year of high school, which I guess they were seniors, not juniors, because there was no time skip from junior year to senior year. It was just 9/11 happens, graduated, summer, 4 years later. Anyway, he goes through college, and he's living with someone who is not introduced as his girlfriend, just a girl named Arlie. And you kind of have to pick. Did you see my cat run by? You have to kind of pick up through context clues that they're dating. And I guess it kind of, because he says something like he services her or she services him or something like that. And I guess you could see that being, like, I guess that's a normal innuendo for a sexual relationship. I didn't pick up on that. So maybe that was them. Maybe that was the author establishing that it was a relationship. And that they live together. But I was like, oh, he's just got his friend named Arlie, who's a girl, and they live together. Because that's normal for men and women to live together, especially right after college. I have a roommate who is a boy. I also live with my boyfriend, but I have another roommate who's a boy. So maybe that's a bad example. And then he's like, my sister's coming to visit. And I completely forgot he had a sister at this point, which... in the synopsis, it's like he works on his relationship with his stepmother and sister. So, like, that was supposed to be a big thing, I guess. But I completely forgot that he had a sister. I want to talk about this because it just so exemplifies what is wrong with this novel. First of all, I completely forgot he had a sister, but she was mentioned before, I think a couple times before, and I just forgot. So I'll give the book that. Whatever. I'm just dumb, right? So Ben, Arlie, and the sister are talking about stuff, and Arlie and the sister are going at it. They are fighting. They do not like each other. Ben is like, I don't know how to fix this, whatever. And Arlie starts... I need to read this. Arlie and Brenda, the sister, are fighting, and they're fighting over the stepmother, Ellen, who I guess Arlie had tried to contact and connect with beforehand. Arlie then drops this bomb as they're talking about something. We're giving no context, and this is literally, oh my gosh. This is the conversation. Sadly, she, Ellen, just couldn't do it. She obviously doesn't feel she can trust anybody. It's why he, the father, married her. Don't you think? Your mother was lovely. I am assuming she was, because that's what I've always been told. But after she died, apparently second best was someone who'd keep her mouth shut. This is Arlie talking about the stepmother, Ellen. And then this is Brenda saying, did it ever occur to you that she might have thought she was dealing with a nutcase? And at this point, I had no idea who she was talking about. Again, I'm the one giving you context of who he is, the dad. Oh, hi, Tito. I was not given context that they were talking about their own father, right? And then Arlie says she certainly wasn't going to admit that he killed himself. And at this point, I'm like, who the fuck are they talking about? It wasn't explained or established or set up at all that they were talking about the father or that the father had died, because it was like right before the main character went to college, he was talking to his dad. He was talking about his dad. And then it's like 4 years happened and he's living with Arlie. And in that chapter, that is where it is established that the dad not only had cancer, but died. And it's assumed that he killed himself because of the cancer. What? I remember writing at the top, it was like 4 years after college, or it was like went to college 4 years after I graduated, whatever. And I was like, oh, so nothing happened in that 4 years? And then I was like, yeah, something very bad happened in those 4 years because his father recently died. Anyway, also, this author has some weird thing with cancer. Like, everybody dies of cancer if they die at all. So that's what I'm talking about, is that this writer just kind of writes things and doesn't establish them, doesn't set them up at all. At one point, so I think I mentioned Lulu previously. Lulu was like the coolest girl in school. She had she had an affair with older men. Ben liked her. Ben had a crush on her, but it was not reciprocated, right? And afterwards, after we're introduced to Lulu, they go on a little excursion where like there was some tension and conflict, and afterwards Ben's like, we used to talk like best friends, like we used to spend I miss being able to talk to her and being so close to her and the relationship we had before. And I was like, that was never established in the first place. That was never, Lulu was just like the unattainable cool girl. Why is there now suddenly such a huge like relationship that they apparently had? And we are told so often throughout the book, throughout the book, that they had such a tight-knit bond. And later on in the book, everyone's like, I thought you were going to marry Lulu. I thought you two were going to end up together. And I'm like, where was that established? We're told that. Never see it. Never see it at all. There's this like weird homophobia in which everyone's like, oh, maybe Laverde is gay and I'm not gay, and boys, all of the boys are like, I don't want to be considered gay. But then like half of the girls are gay. Brenda, Ben's sister, and Lulu eventually turns out to come out of the closet. Like after not seeing her for years and years, like 3/4 of the book, and then suddenly Lulu's back. She has a girlfriend, and everyone's like, what? I thought Ben was gonna marry her. And it's like, where did that come from? I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna skip through most of the book because it's so inconsequential. It's just him traveling through life after college, not having a significant relationship with anybody. You know, literary novel stuff where it's like, I go here and I had, you know, a life-changing conversation, and then I go here and then I had another life-changing conversation. It was also really boring. Nothing really had consequences to it. There were no stakes. That's not the kind of book that it was supposed to be. I get that. I said I wanted to talk about the sex. This isn't a spicy book. This isn't a romance. This doesn't have spicy, well-written sex scenes, which, you know, I'm not trying to judge it on that. What I do want to say is that Ann Beattie writes sex scenes as if she's almost uncomfortable with them. And at that point, why even have them in your books? She writes them as if she knows that teenagers and men have sex, and she wants to acknowledge that her characters have sex and are sexually active, but she doesn't want to dwell on it, and so she'll talk about it in the most bluntest and barest of ways. Like I said, Ben just starts to grow up. He becomes an older man. By older, I mean he's like in his 30s. The pacing of this book is really weird because it obviously jumps from just interaction to interaction. You can see the cat hair flying around. Oh my gosh. Jumps from interaction to interaction, which is fine. I'm okay with weird, ambiguous pacing. What's not fine is that, again, because there's like very little time period set up, I have no idea how old he is by the end of the book. Like, obviously he starts out high school age, 17, 18, maybe, maybe 16, I don't know. And then at the end of the book, he's like, I think somebody mentions that he's in his 30s, but I'm like, I don't know how old he was for any of these. They don't talk about birthdays. They don't talk about which birthdays, or what the years are anymore. It's just free floating through time. At the very beginning of the book, they talk about how everyone wants to impress Laverde. He's a very important figure in Ben's life. So I was like, okay, I want to see more of Laverde. Like I gotta focus on what Laverde is saying because it's obviously going to impact Ben. And it does. He's mentioned a few times, but Laverde does not come into Ben's life after school until the very end of the book, in which it is revealed that he's actually having an affair with Ben's stepmother. I guess it's not an affair because Ben's father is dead. He's fucking his mom. That's all I can say. His stepmom. Anyway, Laverde comes into his life and has a conversation with him to talk about his relationship with Ben's stepmom. And then I shouldn't laugh. He suddenly reveals that he is HIV positive. This seems so inconsequential because it happens in like literally the last couple of chapters. And Ben obviously freaks out because like if he is HIV positive and he's having a relationship with his stepmom, who is a person that Ben kind of cares about, then obviously his stepmom is HIV positive. So he freaks out and he calls his stepmom and he's like, you need to, like, he needs to tell you this, and let me tell you anyway. Just ask him right now, is he lying? Because apparently Laverde has been a huge liar his entire life. There is no setup for the character of Laverde, which I assumed at first was like, he's a mysterious man. He has to have this student-teacher, like, professional boundary. So obviously the students can't learn a lot about him, but, you know, as an adult, Ben could be his friend, and learn more about him, which everyone really wanted to do as students. You know, they wanted to learn more about Laverde lore. And then nothing. He's like not he's not a character until the very end of the book, and then we're told he's a scoundrel, he sleeps around, he might have scammed Ben's father. And the way I'm telling this sounds so disjointed, and it is kind of because I'm just pulling from memory, but that's how the book is. It literally just skips from conversation to conversation, drops bombs on you with no establishment, nothing to actually make you care about the characters or anything. No, it didn't make sense, is all I can say. Again, in the synopsis, it talks about how Ben and his stepmother have like a relationship that needs to be fixed and improved upon. And it's not. I mean, they have a few conversations, but she's not in his life. He talks about her a few times, but again, she's not really in his life. Neither is Brenda, the sister. She's in that one conversation where they talk about the dad dying, and she's in a few other scenes, but her relationship to Ben does not matter in the end. And it's also dropped on us that this was apparently a disciplinary school, Bailey Academy, not a rich privileged school, which is what I thought it was. I mean, it was a boarding school with a really cool honor society teacher. Like, that seemed to me to be like this privileged boarding school rather than a disciplinary school. But apparently it was. Apparently all of the kids that went there had some issues. Jasper, the main character's best friend, apparently was an arsonist, which was not told to us beforehand. Lulu obviously had a bad background. One of the other characters got an abortion, and so her parents were mad at her, and so she went to the school. And Ben is trying to ask Laverde, like, why did my dad send me to this school? Why? And Laverde's like, I don't know. I didn't have access to that information. I don't have access to your file. And then he's like, but you were my dad's friend, which, again, right before that chapter was not established that Laverde had even known his dad. So he's like, you were my dad's friend. So why? You must know. And Laverde reveals to him that his dad had seen him dancing with a picture of his dead mother. He had found a picture of his dead mother who died when he was very young, and he started dancing with it. And his father was so ashamed of that he put him in a disciplinary school. What? I can't explain this book any better, because the things that I left out do not give context to this. The things that I left out were like him going to a bar and seeing another teacher from his school after she's remarried, or going to an art gallery, or going on a date with a woman that he doesn't even like, right? It just is so weird to me. I was gonna talk about a different book too, to make this a two books in one video, but I feel like I've rambled on so much about this book that I need to make a separate video for this book and how dumb this book was too. Also, I don't know why it's called A Wonderful Stroke of Luck. That does not make sense to me. Anyway, it was a 1-star book for me. This was my first time trying to do an in-depth review, and this might have been a bad book to start with because it already was so disjointed, and so hard. It was just kind of me ranting about it, but like, I feel like I can't actually explain this book to somebody So this is the best I could do, is just ranting about it. I don't think you should read this book. I don't think it was worth $1, which, I mean, it's $1. It's definitely not worth your time. Maybe Ann Beattie's other books are good and interesting. I personally, because of this book, I'm not gonna go seek her out, but if I happen to read another Ann Beattie book, I'm not gonna, it might be better than this. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this review. Hopefully my next review can be a little more coherent, because this one definitely wasn't. It's such a bad book. If you liked that, I guess subscribe to my channel, and I hopefully will do some more in-depth book reviews. I did some like purple eyeshadow because I wanted to invoke Reads with Rachel. I've been watching a lot of her videos recently. She's really great. I love her reviews. I think she's got wonderful things to say. And she kind of, I guess, inspired me, or gave me the motivation I needed to make my own book review. Anyway, that's going to be it from me. You should check out your local Dollar Tree and see if you can find a good book, or a bad book that's bad enough that it's fun to read. That's what this was for me. I'm surprised I didn't DNF it. I got to a point, a certain chapter in, I don't remember, very early on in the book, where I was like, this book sucks. I should just stop reading. And then I was like, but it's like kind of funny enough and weird enough that I want to like actually read it and see where it goes, because it was just so weird. I did waste my time on it. Again, I don't think it's worth the amount of time I spent reading it, but oh my god, stop it.